The VP is seething. Amidst the chaos and afterglow of the hot shooter, Rob looks over at the VP and says, "You were so right." The VP responds, "Right about what?" Hey everybody, Big Friendly here. Today I got a video for you. It's a two-part video. I want to go over how about the very first time I played Demon Attack, and I do remember it, and I want to share that story. I also want to share some old photographs of myself and my friends and just show how video games, we enjoyed them together. And I'll even throw in a couple of funny stories. One of them is actually poking fun at yours truly. And then I also want to share two stories about the programmer of Demon Attack, Rob Fulop, out of Howard Scott Warshaw's book, Once Upon Atari. And they're absolutely hilarious. I'd never heard them before, but I heard them on here, and they were funny. So let's go ahead and do this. All right, let's go. You know, we all have memories, and you know, we remember doing things for the first time, or you know, experiencing things for the first time. But I think my mind it's messed up. There's just something, I can remember the most insignificant things often, that when I tell the stories, people who were there, you know, or who know me, or the people that are being told about, or it makes for good storytelling. I'll just say that. My crazy memory. Several years ago, my older brother even teased me about my memory, and unfortunately what he said is really true. He said, you know, it's funny how you can remember all this stuff. He's like, it's really kind of crazy. He says, it's too bad you can't use it to make money or get women. I was like, damn, you son of a bitch, you're right. It was just funny. But the crazy thing is also I can't remember to, you know, my wife could say, pick up a gallon of milk on the way home, and I'll forget. You know, that's how, you know, I will forget stuff now, but I'll remember something silly from 40 years ago. But I remember the first time I played this game. I remember it distinctly. I couldn't tell you the exact date, but I would say it was in the summer of 1982. So the game had been out for a few months. My friend I grew up with, I grew up in a community called Pike Road, Alabama. It's outside of Montgomery. It was just a rural community, and I wouldn't trade my experiences of growing up out there for anything. Had some great friends, and many of them I still stay in touch with till this day. But my friend Shane, he had gotten Donkey Kong for the 2600, and he was coming over to hang out, and he also had Demon Attack, and I'd never played it, so he brought it over to play. You know, so we just, you know, we played my games too, you know, Asteroids and stuff like that. Now, in order to add some context to what I'm telling y'all here, I want to show you some photographs. Now, my mother took all of these. This picture here was probably taken in 1983 or 84. It was a July 4th parade. We had one every year out there in Pike Road, and that was our softball team. I mean, we had a few more players. That wasn't all of it, but and that is Shane, the guy who brought Demon Attack over to my house, in the yellow shirt in the middle, and I'm the tall guy behind him. I'm standing on my tiptoes, though. I'm not that tall. I was the tallest of the bunch usually, but my mom probably told me to, so she could see my face better, probably told me to get on my tiptoes. But I grew up and played video games with all these kids, all these guys. The fella to the right of Shane, right there in front of me, the first time I ever played with an Atari was probably at his house. He had it before Space Invaders came out. And I remember playing the old crummy football game with the flickering ghost and, you know, Indy 500 stuff like that. The guy on the left, he's actually deceased. His name is John, and his dad is the guy with the mustache. He was our softball coach, and his older brother Jim is in front of his dad to my right, just behind Shane's right shoulder. His name was Jim. But anyway, the little guy on the left, John, that I said it was deceased. In 1997, he was just literally about to graduate. I don't know if he'd been through the ceremony, but he was done. He was going to graduate from Auburn University. I think he had an engineering degree of some kind. I can't remember. It was something like that. But him and a bunch of his friends. I think several of them lived in a mobile home. They all rented it, together and in a trailer park. A lot of students at Auburn did that. And a bunch of them were piled up in a pickup truck, and they were turning into the mobile home park, and he was in the back of the truck. Several of them were, and I think he was sitting on the edge of instead of being down in the bed, he was on the edge of the truck, the bed of the truck, and he just simply fell off, and he landed on the ground, and they all stopped, his roommates and all their friends, and they walked back, and they were telling him to get up and everything, and they weren't going that fast. But what happened was he just hit his head on the pavement, and he was in the hospital, and of course, word spread pretty fast. I found out about 5:30 that morning, and me and another friend of mine named Jeff, we went over there, and we got there was already a bunch of people there. It was at the hospital over in Auburn. I was living in Montgomery at the time, and they kept him hooked up until sometime that afternoon, and then they realized he was brain dead, and they took him off the machine, and it was pretty harsh. It was rough. You just don't expect something like that to happen. You just don't. Not when some kid's that age, and he was a good kid. Now, when he was little that age, he was a pain in the butt. He was one of them kids that, he knew how to push your buttons to really get a rise out of you. And I remember one time, little shit, we were at the ball field, and we already played, and we're just hanging out after the game. The older kids were playing after us. So just a bunch of us hanging out. There were some girls there, and in the concession stand at the ball field, they had a couple of bathrooms. Well, I was in there in the men's room sitting down taking a dump. And he come up there, and the lock didn't work good, and he opened the door up. He's like, "Hey, y'all, look at Scott." There were girls. Man, I was so pissed off. I pulled my pants up, didn't even wipe myself, chased him down. I was bigger than him, so I was able to outrun him, and I cagged him from behind. He literally did a forward flip in the air, and then when he landed on his back, it was like, like you could hear the wind get knocked out of him. And he starts to cry a little bit. And I was like, "Serves you right, you little bastard," or something. I probably called him something like that. And this is no kidding. I start to walk away. He goes from crying. He starts giggling and laughing and gets up and runs off. Oh, I wanted to kill him. And one other time, he was such a doofus. His older brother Jim used to make cinnamon toothpicks. He would get the cinnamon oil. It was real hot. And he didn't dilute it. He would just put the cinnamon, he put the toothpicks in there and just soak them in it for a long time. And anyway, he would take those toothpicks to school, and he would sell them for $0.10 a piece. And he actually did pretty good on that. He was making some good side money. A dime was still worth something back in those days. But anyway, somehow, I don't know why, but the cinnamon oil, I think, was at the church. I could be getting this part wrong. But John, his little brother, the little pain in the butt, he somehow spilled the cinnamon oil all over himself. It was burning him up. So I wind up back over at their house, and I go in the bathroom, and John is just laid in the tub naked, just because he's no soap in there, just to cool him off. And you can see there's like red splotches all over his chest and everything where the cinnamon oil fell out on him, and Jim's mom wouldn't let him do the toothpicks anymore, so naturally Jim was upset because that cut off his money he was making on the side at junior high school. So just some funny stuff. And one more thing about this picture, y'all see that basketball court behind us, that little basketball court? I remember when they first poured that concrete, it just hardened it. The basketball goal wasn't even up there yet, and we would play football. The church is to the left of this picture, and there's just a big open field behind us. But we would play football out there during, after church or whatever on Wednesday nights. This happened on a Wednesday. And I was running backwards to catch the ball. They were kicking off. We would just throw the ball down to the other team, and I was going to field the ball. And I forgot that concrete was there, and I tripped over it, running backwards. And I fell back and hit my right wrist on that concrete, and it broke my wrist. and of course it hurt. Like, hey, it hurt. I was hurting, and there was a woman that was a member of the church, and she was a nurse, and she helped me out. My parents were actually out of town, so my brother had to take me to the emergency room. No, my mom was. My dad was just not at church. My older brother had drove me up there. We were up there, and she made just a makeshift, sling just to kind of support it. And it was funny because there was another kid named Steven that I also played video games with. He's not in this picture, but he jokingly said while I was on the ground, like, ow, my arm. He's like, uh-oh, you're not going to be able to play Atari no more, Scott. And I actually said, oh, I'll play left-handed. We all played games and just hung out together for years. And I still stay in touch with several of these guys. And there's some that's not in this picture that I'm still tight with. And one weekend or a long weekend a year, usually in the late summer, early fall, we'll just do a guy's trip with no wives, no kids, nothing like that. And one of my other friends, I didn't know him yet at this point. I didn't meet him till high school, late high school. But he owns a condo down at Orange Beach in Alabama, and it's a real nice place. I mean, it's a real nice condo. It's got like 4 bedrooms. So we'll all go down there for a weekend, just hang out and tell the same old stories, laugh, have a good time, drink beer, eat too much food, and have a good time. Now, there's some other pictures that my mom took. The next ones I'm going to show you are at a church. It was at my house I grew up in, our house, my folks' house. And it was a church youth group thing that my mom took these pictures of. These pictures were taken inside, we called it the game room. It was basically an enclosed garage that my parents enclosed and it just add another room to the house. And the reason I want to show you this particular picture is you see the kid on his knees. Look behind him next to the right of that rotary telephone. It's a Raiders of the Lost Ark arcade video game stand-up little display thing that my parents, whenever they bought the ColecoVision for me from the home video game club where I would rent games, the owners gave them several things like that, and they popped them up and put them up in there. There was one for Laser Blast also, but I don't have a picture of it. But you see, that stayed there for a few years. I wish I still had it. It eventually got thrown out. Yeah, this is in the same room in the opposite corner. Now on the bottom right of the picture, that's me sitting on the couch with the blue shirt on, and the kid next to me, his name's Rob, and we're playing video games. And the girl you see in front of the window, that's actually my brother's wife. They didn't start dating until they were a lot older, but it was several years when they were older. They went to high school together, but they're still together today. They got married in 1991 and they're still married. Okay, last one, I promise. There's a couple reasons I want to show you this. Okay, now that is Shane on the right side of the picture, with the fingers over the other guy's head, and that's the exact same couch we sat on when we played Demon Attack a year or so earlier than when this was taken. Now the guy in the white coat he's one of my best friends. We still talk to this day, probably at least a couple times a month, and he is actually a lawyer, and he is a state senator over in Alabama in the Montgomery area. So now the last thing I want to say about this picture is if you look at the very bottom of the very picture down there, you can see it's a Zonix 2-ender cartridge plugged into the system. I know what it was. It was the one that had the game where you had to climb the mountain. I hated that game. It was so hard. And the other game was the one where you lob the cannon shots at each other. I didn't think it was all that great. The ColecoVision version was so much better. I'm just having a brain fart and I can't think of it at the moment. But that was all of us hanging out and playing video games, like a bunch of y'all did, I'm sure. Okay, I blathered on for a while. I'm sorry, I just can't help myself. Okay, let's get back to Demon Attack, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. There's some cool things about how it changed, how it's a unique game. Let's just get back into it. But I remember this game, the first time I played it, just being blown away, of course, by the graphics. I mean, the way the demons morph together, when they appear on the screen, the sounds, the background noise, it's there, but it's, it's not over. It doesn't get on your nerves. You almost don't even notice it, but it's still there, and it really does sound great when you think about this game only being a game that only has 4 kilobytes of ROM. The programmer, his name is Rob Fulop. I mean, he really, really, really went the distance with this, and he had some serious motivation to do so. And we're gonna go into that a little later. But I always thought those guys there looked kind of like, I wasn't the first one to say this, but I agree, they look like vacuums. I guess they look kind of like guppies, but to me they do look kind of like vacuum cleaners. Giant industrial vacuum cleaners. But when you think about 1982 and just how simple Atari games were, this was really a great move forward. I mean, you had many different kinds of demons that he actually drew. It wasn't, just the same things over and over like Space Invaders or Galaxian or whatever. It was a lot of different demons. He mixed the colors up, and then the first time you play it, when you see them split in two, again, you're like totally blown away as a kid. It was just like something you've never seen before. And you have those games that you play if you've been playing games all your life. Even if you're younger than I am, and I'm 55 years old, you play games as the technology improves, and there are certain ones you never forget the first time you play them, because they do things that you've never really seen before. And a couple of other examples just that were later on than Demon Attack that I could give you were the first time that I played Doom in the early 90s. I was blown away just by the whole first person shooter thing. It had never looked that cool. There had been games that did that, but nothing like that ever happened. Another good example, not long after that, would be the first time I played Resident Evil on the original PlayStation. Again, I'd never played anything like that before. So you have those games like that just, you always remember them because they were life-changing type games. That was the way it was for when I played Demon Attack the first time. It would definitely be on the 2600 in my top 10 easily, maybe my top 5. How does it rank for y'all? Did you have it? Did you play it? Did you like it? I know some of y'all in my other video, I was surprised. A lot of y'all did say you liked Phoenix better than Demon Attack. I don't agree, but hey, we all have a right to our opinion and everything. And another thing I'd love to hear from y'all on, I really appreciate whenever y'all interact on the videos. It's great in the comment section. But I'd love to hear, tell me a couple of those life-changing games for you. What were those titles that just changed? You'll never forget them. They just had a huge impact on your life. Doesn't matter if it was, what age you are. Was it way back in the early 80s, or was it in the last 10 or 20 years? Just let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, there's a couple of passages I want to read out of Warshaw's book, Once Upon Atari, and they are about Rob Fulop. Now, I haven't seen everything. I mean, there is so much stuff on YouTube where Fulop does interviews, whether they're at game, conferences or retro conferences, podcasts, blah, blah, blah. There's just tons of them, so I haven't seen them all. So, first time I read this, I'd never heard it before, and I think it's really great. He did say, I have seen him say on the internet, that whenever he made Demon Attack, Fulop did, he wanted to make it the best possible game he could. He just absolutely poured his heart and soul into it, simply because he wanted to stick it to Atari. He wanted those stiff suits over there to see they weren't going to make a penny off this game, and it was going to be a game that was hugely successful, and it was. Okay. The part I'm going to read is A Tale of Three Christmases, 1980, 81, and 82. Now I'm just going to read 80 and 81. All right, here we go. It's mid-December 1980, and all of the good little boys and girls at Atari are eagerly anticipating their Christmas bonus. And no one is feeling the spirit more than young Rob Fulop. He completed Missile Command for the 2600, and it's a thing of beauty. Everyone knows this game is flying off the shelves. Many months of hard work have resulted in a game which is netting the company tens of millions of dollars. Now it's time for the company to express its appreciation, and Rob is listening most attentively. What will it be, he wonders? A check with 5 fat figures on it?
perhaps the keys to a lovely new car. As the days pass, you can see the visions dancing around his head, something of substance to commemorate young Rob's dedication and hard work, a token of sincere gratitude. I've been a good boy. It's time to see what happens to good boys. At long last, the day arrives, and his manager comes strolling down the hall with envelopes. And here's the one for Rob. Rob jiggles it first to see if it rattles. Then he holds it up to the light. Finally, he peels it open and is treated to a folded sheet of paper, which he unfolds directly. As he absorbs the contents, he freezes, absolutely incredulous. Never in his wildest dreams did he dare to imagine his reward could actually be a certificate for one free turkey. Oh my God. Oh God. It's right here. All right. Frantically, he scours the floor around him for a check he surely missed. He tears the envelope wide, but nothing. That was the precise moment young Rob vowed he would never do another game for Atari. And 6 months later, he left with his manager, who delivered the envelope, and another wonderful Atari programmer to form Imagic Inc. This, the second great defection from Atari, was the product of a fouled bonus attempt. Let this be a lesson to tech executives everywhere. Man, that would be horrible. Imagine you're making tens of millions of dollars. I mean, this is back when they could still charge $30 for a cartridge, in 1980. This wasn't in 83 when they were struggling to get $10 for one. This is back when Activision was the only competition. So they could still make a lot of money. And they gave him, that is such an insult. They talk about the utter disconnect of those stiff suits. What a bunch of total morons. Oh, well, all I can say is, on that first part, is thank God he left and we got those great games from Activision. Seriously, I'm so glad that he did. And his boss and the other programmer, thank God they left. I know their names, but I'm having a brain fart. I'm sure many of you know them anyway. If you do, type it in down below. Okay, let's get on to the second one. There was a certain irony to this Christmas at Atari, because the elusive dream which sent Rob running for venture capital was about to become true for many of us who remained, largely because he and the manager and the other wonderful Atari denizen had left. It's like the old saying goes, once burned, twice shy. But when twice burned, it's time to check the grill for issues. The Activision formation merely served to dig Ray, talk about Ray Kazar, the CEO, Ray's heels in a little deeper. But after the Imagic formation, even Atari executives became concerned about the prospect of any more golden geese flying the coop. By Thanksgiving, they presented the first Atari royalty plan, which was a surprise. Unfortunately, the plan guaranteed virtually nothing, deferred payouts for years, and landed with a pronounced thud, which wasn't a surprise. The fact this wasn't much of a motivator was communicated back to management. Ordinarily, we would expect management to rail against the ungrateful programmers for not appreciating the crumbs cast on the water. Okay, this one's a little longer, but it's so great. Christmas number 2, 1981. It appeared management actually listened this time, because just before Christmas, they came across with some significant bonus money, a big surprise. This made our Christmas at Atari rather jolly. Many programmers became very happy, and we all owed a debt of gratitude to Rob and pals. Back in the day, there was no trade show exclusively for video games. There was just the Consumer Electronics Show, or CES, and video games were simply the latest gimmick in a sea of click, flash, beep technology. Twice a year, every year, this convention convened at the same times and the same locations, Chicago in June and Las Vegas just after New Year's. Chicago was always fun, but Vegas was amazing. The idea that someone would turn us loose in Vegas with an expense account was incredible. You couldn't tell if Vegas made us livelier or if we made Vegas glow, but CES in Vegas was magical. Running around all day, analyzing the latest video games and electronic toys, that was our professional obligation for the trip. Sounds like a lot of fun. The rest of the time was focused on allocating the expense account for fun. Free-flowing booze and MRBs abounded. MRBs. I don't know what that is. Gambling shows, great restaurants, and our only care was hanging on to the receipts. Many memorable moments manifested during CES, and one of the best is about Rob Fulop, some Atari execs, and a long green felted craps table. Any y'all ever shoot craps? I've done it a little bit, enough to lose my money real fast, but I kind of get the basics of the game. It's 2 weeks after Christmas of 1981. Rob is the guy who created 2600 Missile Command for Atari, then left and created 26 Demon Attack for imagic, both ranked near the top of any credible games list. There were those at Atari that really thought Demon Attack should have been done for Atari. When Rob and the others left to form imagic, they created a very tough competitor. This move enraged more than a few Atari execs, and none more so than a VP who had befriended Rob and took Rob's exodus as a personal insult of the highest order. It's funny how the people who do the least to keep you there rage the hardest when you leave. After Rob, the manager, and the wonderful other departed, the vacuum they left behind soon filled with an aura of bitterness and ire on part of some of Atari execs, that is, and this VP in particular. So it comes to pass, so to speak, if you speak craps, that several Atari big and medium wigs were gathered around one end of a craps table, and among their number is a aforementioned VP. They are drinking and gambling it up and having a classic Vegas time, when who should sidle up to the other end of the table but young Rob Fulop himself, and the tenor of the evening abruptly shifts. Shooters come and don't, and things move along as they always do at a dice table. But the banter is taking on a decidedly sharper edge. The testosterone is growing so thick the players are breaking off chunks to tip the cocktail waitresses. Eventually Rob gets the dice, and the Atari execs make a big show of betting against him, and they cheer when Rob inevitably craps out, and none cheered louder than the VP. Now Rob, being the cool customer he is, just sips his drink and bides his time until the dice are finally passed to the VP. After placing a bet, the VP looks up and dares Rob to bet against him. It's childish and absurd, and just the kind of situation Rob cannot resist. He grabs a stack of chips, places a hefty bet, only instead of betting against the VP, he bets with him. Oh, that's so cool. This is pure Rob. The VP doesn't know what to do. He hates the idea of Rob profiting, but he can't root against himself. He's angry and conflicted and trying not to show it. The VP begins rolling the dice, and he is on fire. It's the hottest roll of the evening, and although he is making a bunch of money, Rob is making more. You can see the VP's blood pressure rising with each throw. Never was a crap shooter so irked by their own good fortune. The more the VP tries to hide it, the more it spills over. Finally, the VP craps out, and everyone at the table cheers for the hot shooter, and no one cheers louder than Rob. The VP is seething. Amidst the chaos and afterglow of the hot shooter, Rob looks over at the VP and says, "You were so right." The VP responds, "Right about what?" "You always told me if I stuck with you, I'd make some real money." It took 2 directors and a national sales manager to restrain the VP as Rob headed for the cashier's cage with a rack of chips in his arm and an impish grin on his face. Yeah! So awesome. Now, unfortunately, at least according to Howard, Atari actually got even with Rob Fulop. That's according to Howard. I'm not going to read it to you, though. If you want to hear about it, buy the damn book. It's a good book. It's got some cool stuff in it. And I'll link it in the description. And yes, I'll get a small commission if you buy it. But hey, man, I'm renting a room here to live in. I don't have nothing. So help me out, all right? Oh, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Love you guys. Take it easy.